Hey everyone! Today, we are going to watch the process of realism and portrait tattooing technique in a time lapse. From the initial design to detailing and shading, I'll show you all the steps. The first step is designing and transferring the stencil onto artificial skin or the body. At this stage, the main lines must be completely clear to avoid issues during the process. Clean lines create a strong foundation for a flawless tattoo. Now, I start outlining the main lines. In realism tattoos, the lines are usually softer and more delicate than in other styles since this style relies heavily on shading. To keep lines clean and steady, the wrist should remain stable and most of the movement should come from the forearm. A key technique is controlling hand pressure. Consistent pressure keeps lines smooth, and you can use the feathering technique to fade lines softly. Also, using lower voltage for lining makes the lines more subtle and natural, especially in portraits. Here, I use different shading techniques to create depth and dimension. A mix of grey wash and soft shading makes the tattoo look more natural. To achieve smooth shading, hand movements should be steady and fluid, and the needle should not penetrate too deeply. One effective method is the circular motion technique, which creates softer and more natural shading with small circular strokes. Also, gradually reducing hand pressure helps create smoother gradients. Key techniques in this step: circular motion, using small, controlled circular strokes creates softer and more natural shading. This technique helps build gradual layers and control tonal transitions. Whip shading, flicking the needle outward while gradually reducing pressure creates smooth and fading shadows. This technique is great for transitions and soft blends. At this stage, after completing most of the tattoo, I do a thorough review. I focus on areas that need refinement or enhancement. This might involve fixing shadows, adding more details, or sharpening highlights. Layering shadows, I start with a lighter base shade, then gradually layer darker shadows to build more depth. These layers stack on top of each other, ensuring the shadows blend seamlessly and naturally without harsh lines. In this technique, my goal is to create real depth and volume in the tattoo. To do this, I use multiple layers of shading with varying levels of darkness to create more contrast and dimension. When shadows are blended correctly, the tattoo appears more natural and three-dimensional. This process requires a lot of precision to ensure each layer of shading is placed exactly where it needs to be. Using different shades, instead of using a single fixed shade, I apply a range of shades. For example, darker shades for deeper areas and lighter shades for raised areas. This technique adds depth and variation to the shadows. Needle pressure control. Needle pressure must be precisely controlled. I apply more pressure in deeper areas to make the shading darker and use lighter pressure in raised areas to create softer shades. Instead of applying all the shadows at once, apply them gradually and in stages. Start by laying down lighter shades and gradually add darker ones. This technique helps create a more natural and deeper effect. Layering shadows this way adds contrast and dimension to the tattoo, giving it a more realistic look. By building up shadows gradually, you avoid harsh lines and create a smoother, more blended transition between light and dark areas. When blending shadows, using a reference image is absolutely essential. It ensures that the shadows you apply are not only accurate but also match the proportions, angles, and lighting of the subject you're tattooing. Detailed observation of the reference helps you understand how light interacts with the skin, muscles, and facial features, especially in portrait tattoos. Pay attention to the light source and contrast in the reference image to accurately replicate the way shadows fall. In portrait work, every small detail, like the curvature of the face, subtle transitions from light to dark, and specific highlights, is vital for capturing the true essence of the subject. By focusing on these details, your tattoo will reflect more depth, making it appear three-dimensional and lifelike. Additionally, always adjust your shading techniques according to the reference. For example, if you're working on a face, notice where the deepest shadows are around the cheekbones, nose, and under the chin. Conversely, areas like the forehead or cheek might have softer shading. Ensuring the correct placement of these details and shadows adds realism and brings the portrait to life. For very fine details and textures, I use the stippling technique. This technique helps me add more depth and dimension, especially in areas that require precise shading. By creating tiny dots, I can create more natural-looking textures. This technique is perfect for realistic tattoos. Controlling shading intensity. By adjusting the dilution of the ink, you can control the intensity of the shading. When shadows appear too harsh or have sharp borders, I use a finer needle and softening techniques to blur the borders so the shadows blend more naturally with the skin, avoiding that sharp line effect. This video was brief and included some important tips and techniques, but the design is not yet complete. In the next video, I will teach you additional tips and advanced techniques for realism tattoos, as well as common mistakes, to help elevate your skills. If you're a tattoo artist or planning to become one, subscribe right now.